Okay, I hope everyone can hear me. Welcome to the 12th session. We have one more session to go after this one on the Washington Schools e-course. I hope everyone is doing and is making progress on their case studies. At the end of the session today, I'll talk for maybe 40 minutes. At the session today, we'll then have a few presentations from some of your co-students and colleagues that they'll be going over their progress on their case study bottleneck analysis. So I'm looking forward to hearing about how everyone is doing. That I am clear here.
You're better, but there is some disturbance, like electronic, something is shifting kind of thing on your voice, but it's better.
It's very windy here. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay. We're having some very crazy weather, but hopefully it'll be better. I'll hold the microphone closer. Okay, so I'm going to talk about specifically about a project that Emory and UNICEF worked on together, and a report on that project will be coming out soon. It was on the access to Washington schools, and we did a comparative study of the policy and service delivery in 6 countries: Kyrgyzstan, Malawi, Philippines, Timor-Leste, Uganda, and Uzbekistan. Project goal was, for the specific goal was to contribute to strengthening Washington schools programming at a country level with an equity perspective. Oftentimes we develop programming around improving Washington schools coverage, but we really wanted to understand, is there an equity lens in which we can investigate the issues of Washington schools? In countries, are there specific populations that are being left out? And I think we wanted to contribute to the understanding of equity of access to Washington schools, how the government policy and practice. We wanted to know, are there policies and practices that dictate Washington schools access, and how is that access reflected in dimensions of inequity? And we wanted to develop a replicable systematic approach and method for gathering information that if other countries wanted to partner with local universities or international universities and conduct a similar study, this would be a guiding principle, a guideline for them to conduct a similar set of analyses. So our program objectives. Describe the country-specific policy environment for access to Washington schools at the national, district, and local level. Quantify and discuss access to Washington schools through a review of available data and citizen experience. And the point is that there is often a lot of data available in countries that aren't utilized to understand if there's an equity in access. And I'll talk a little bit about that more later when I discuss a subcomponent that we looked at in the Philippines on regional inequity. The country-specific mentions of WASH equity and evaluate how the relationship between policy and provision of WASH are affected by equity. Compare provision and approaches to existing concepts of best practices and communicate findings. What kind of questions do we ask? We wanted to know what's known about the current situation for Washington schools. What national government view of the situation? What is UNICEF's view of the situation? The project was done in very close collaboration with UNICEF headquarters and also the different UNICEF offices in the countries that I mentioned. What are policies related to Washington schools, and are there national standards in place? What does include and what are they missing? And what are the considerations unique to this country's culture? Are other actors or data sets available that can help us better understand the situation of Washington schools? So we had research fellows, which were recent MPH graduates who were placed in country offices to work side by side with UNICEF colleagues. They identified available data, and they conducted key interviews with government stakeholders, NGOs, and UNICEF staff, and conducted field visits to conduct focus group discussions. Of the data collection, here's some of the data collection that we did in the different countries. Conducted key informant interviews, did school visits, conducted focus group discussions. So we collect data. Before we start talking about what we consider to be the equity dimensions, I'll get your thoughts on what you think are the different aspects of potential inequity in schools. For example, what groups or the people are sometimes excluded from access to one schools? Please go ahead and type some of your thoughts. And handicapped children, regional, rural and urban schools might be different. I see a colleague from Kyrgyzstan who was involved in one of the original pieces. Type to Marat as a private message. Just make sure that you're saying send to everyone when you type in the chat window. Thoughts? These are good ones. Minorities, low income who can't afford, forms or school fees, differences, displaced populations, maybe because of their and needs, remoteness, remote populations. It's a good one. Thanks. Really good, good thoughts. So we had a couple of different disparity dimensions that we looked at specifically. First, urban-rural disparities. So schools in urban and rural areas also often have different access to supply chains and different components. And may require different types of technology and different in urban areas. Oftentimes, populations might be willing to spend more money in those areas. Second area is in climatic or geographic, different climatic or geographic conditions. So schools in arid or arid areas may require different, more expensive technology. They may require low use sanitation facilities. They may require, ones of pits that are raised because of sandy soils. Type of the school institution. So some schools are supported by the community while others are supported by the government. Some are private. So some populations that are supported by different types of schools may have different levels of access. And regional disparities, which is something that was mentioned in the chat window. Certain districts or provinces may receive less funding or attention because they're further from the capital city, more remote, may have worse road access. They may also contain marginalized groups, tribes, or ethnicities. So this is where regional disparity is a potentially big issue. Some others that were mentioned also, gender. So a lot has been talked about and written about in terms of gender inequity. Girls have different requirements than boys for wash facilities, so it's important to consider girls' needs when designing facilities. They also may require more facilities. Different ages also need different facilities. Also linked in here is socioeconomic status, caste, or tribe. So marginalized populations that also be in remote areas have poor access to washing schools. Different religions, and something also that was mentioned is so for different religions they may require different types of facilities, and also children with special needs and disabilities. And I'll talk more about that in a study with regards to Uganda a little bit later on. Main questions here was the issues around equity, different dimensions of equity. How are those different dimensions of equity dealt with at the policy level? What are the different policies at the government, the national level, at the school level, at the local level, at the district level? And usually policies are at the national level, at the school level, that relate to equity. Are there laws in effect that guarantee equitable access? There isn't equitable access, that in fact there's a good policy environment, but involved delivery, or it's policy environment there. Important question to ask, because if the policy is there and there's inequity, well, then that's a great opportunity for you to advocate. And remember, we talked about kind of the advocacy and government engagement for improving access in specific areas, because policy is in place. Now, if it's not in place, then good opportunity to work within the sectoral partners to really improve the policy environment. What are some of the areas within the policy environment that would be of interest? First is accountability. You want to make sure that there's clear accountability in the policy environment, and we want whether it's which ministry is in charge. Policies in place policies must be in place to designate clear roles and responsibilities. Policies for distribution of funds, whether they're based on need and whether based on policy, or is it up to politicians to delineate, to deliver funds how they see fit? Technology standards. Are there a sufficient number of technology standards for latrines, water supply, and hand washing that can accommodate children of different ages, different religious beliefs, and different abilities? Standards have to be developed for all of these different types of children, and also for different areas. So there's only one or two standard toilet facilities styles. Then clearly, to achieve that policy, certain areas and certain pupils will have to be neglected. Fourth, hygiene education. Behavior change education material. Are teachers trained? Are the materials gender appropriate? And finally, monitoring in place within the policy environment. Are education officers, district education officers required to assess the Washington schools environment of the country? And if not, it probably means that data aren't available. And if the data aren't available, they'll never know whether there's inequity. Quick summary of some of our findings. These are the 6 different countries that we looked at, and here are some main dimensions of inequity that we found. In Canada, we found gender equity, regional disparity, ethnicity, and urban-rural disparities, among others. Malawi, urban-rural disparity, gender disparity, and children with special needs and disabilities were key. In the Philippines, there was issues around regional disparity and disability. For East Timor, there were urban-rural disparities and gender issues. Uganda, gender special needs and regional disparities, and Uzbekistan, regional disparities in gender. And all of these different countries had different levels of support policy environment. And I'll mention when we talk about Mali and Philippines some of those differences. Other findings. So vulnerable populations such as girls, children with disabilities, students of minority ethnic groups, and children from marginalized and isolated sub-regional regions were found to be disproportionately affected by lack of access to Washington schools. We found in general that there was inadequate enforcement of existing policies or policies that led to low accountability at the national, district, and school level to actually include adequate provision of WASH facilities. And some people are saying that there's no sound. Okay. Insufficient monitoring and evaluation. So there was no data being collected. And I mentioned from Luis, does this mean, for example, that in East Timor does not have equity issues or disabilities? No, that's not what this means. It's not comparative. These are some of the main issues that people themselves, the stakeholders, the UNICEF staff, and NGOs mentioned were issues that were being worked on. But it doesn't mean that there's other issues that didn't exist. And so the final finding, Washington schools infrastructure, operation and maintenance are underfunded at all levels of government. I don't think any of you are surprised by this. But all the funding wasn't available for capital costs or current costs of maintaining facilities. Our general conclusions. Overall access masks specific inequities. So in reach-limited countries, because of issues of inequitable access, they can appear to be with limited access in general. So there's enough money to support to provide schools with universal access to WASH, and so many groups are excluded. And this exclusion is frequently due to rural shortages and it must be remedied by overall access. However, vulnerable groups are disproportionately excluded from WASH, and the existing inequities of being a vulnerable group are exacerbated by the overall lack of access. The data are not consistently gathered or used effectively, so WASH facilities and hygiene practices in schools are not accurately evaluated in many contexts and often not measured. So there's really an inadequate and inconsistent monitoring, data and management, use of data to inform policy, and that really underscores the challenges of achieving equitable access to Washington schools. And so the first step is really understanding the data and getting data. Otherwise, we'll never be able to achieve equitable access. Third issue is around adequate funding, and that must be provided for maintenance. Cleanliness is a major barrier lifted by many of the students, and so there needs to be funding available to actually maintain these facilities. The lack of adequate and clean facilities is a barrier to girls' education as well as equitable access. So girls are more susceptible to issues around poor facilities, and so that could be around issues around menstrual hygiene, privacy, and safety. Next, facilities must be more fully accessible for children with disabilities. Children with disabilities, it was a big issue in many of the countries. Many standards in place do not account for children with disabilities, or the standards aren't really appropriate for different kinds of disabilities. So children with disabilities may be a sanitation, that's provided for children with wheelchairs, but it doesn't count for other types of physical and mental disabilities. Next, disparities in access frequently across regional boundaries. We saw regional inequity across all the areas which we were investigating. And students are already marginalized. They're already from poor areas or from minority tribes or groups, and so the regional inequity exacerbates that. There are strong policies, but they're not really enforced. And so there's lack of appropriate budgeting for Washington schools. There's a priority given at the implementation level. There's a lack of accountability for provision of Washington facilities, and that there's taboo of sanitation. And so the policies are in place, but oftentimes the policies are not actually carried out. So recommendations. We need to include stipulations for the inclusion of vulnerable populations. We need to increase accountability for Washington schools at all levels. Increase the financial investment in operation and maintenance. And we need to improve designs for school infrastructure to better accommodate student needs. Remember, there are 6 pillars from the call to action for Washington schools. So the first, increase investment. National and local governments need to allocate specific budgets for Washington schools. These investments need to be distributed equitably across the population. We need to engage those who set policies and standards. And those standards have to be policies have to include clauses for equitable access, and the standards have to include lines for all of the marginalized populations. To involve multiple stakeholders and increase accountability at the local level, equality, and it would be, it's up to all of you to develop innovative approaches to show quality improvements to Washington schools, not just in kind of urban areas, but across all segments of the population. Washington schools is, as I mentioned a couple times now, critically important. Without the data, we won't be able to achieve equitable access. And then contribute evidence-based. So in the understanding of the impact of Washington schools on marginalized populations, children with disabilities, girls, different ages, also evidence that there's equitable access. So I'm going to talk about two quick case studies. Please mute your microphone. Thank you. Talk about 2 quick case studies of that were done. So in the Philippines, we had a specific interest in issues of regional disparity, and Alex Fair was there. And this is water and sanitation coverage in the Philippines. And if you remember, the Philippines, can you hear me now? Okay. Okay. It seems so in the Philippines, they are on track to reach the Millennium Development Goal for improved access to water. As you can see on the left side here, there's very high coverage of improved access to water. However, these what look like very strong numbers for access within the Philippines, some interesting regional disparities. So for education, so there's a lot of gender equity in terms of education in the Philippines. The girls are enrolled more than boys in school. You can see we're at about 93% of enrollment. Even secondary school, girls are have higher rates of enrollment than boys. Here's a graph that shows the level of access to water school. And so you have piped water, rainwater, and well water. So you have a pretty high percentage, around 60% of schools, access to some improved source. But a huge percentage here that have no access to water. And so, an example of the facilities at schools. And you see here, this facility left, there's no roof. So the children, are they want to use this facility? So this is a school with actually access to this is a school with access to sanitation. Each classroom has its own toilet. However, the question is, are these appropriate toilets for children, considered in the classroom, and there's no roof? This map shows the Philippines, and it shows the top and bottom performing schools. So you can see here, top performing schools in red, here are bottom performing schools in blue. Question: is it public or private? This is public schools. So you can see the bottom performing schools are all clustered down here in the bottom, and the top performing schools are all clustered over here. And if you don't know, Manila is about right here. I did an analysis of the top performing schools and the bottom performing schools, and at the percent with water and the student toilet bowl ratio. We find among the top performing schools, 38%, there's a 38:1 for student to toilet bowl ratio. But on 20%, it's 107. So here's the difference of the toilet bowl ratio in top performing schools. It's not that this is causal. It's just to say that those that are the better schools have better access to sanitation. Less than 1% of schools in the top 20% don't have water, whereas 31% of the bottom performing schools don't have water. So the difference between 0.8 and 31%. So this shows what you can do with data. You can look and say, okay, we know what the level of schooling is, but show that whether around socioeconomics or around region, that there's not enough attention being paid to these performing schools. Just to show the variability in the different regions. Each one is a region, and the ability of water access. How variable it is by region. There's optimal disparity. This is water potential in the Philippines, and you can see down here, this area, this has high water potential. And then here, this has low water potential. And if you go south, there's actually more water potential. These are waterless municipalities. And as you can see, percentage of municipalities that don't have water, you see how at the bottom, they're much higher proportion, greater than 50% of these the dark brown are waterless, whereas they're less than 12%. So take together, look at these two charts when you compare them, or maps. Oops. You have lower water potential. Lower water potential. You have fewer waterless municipalities. You have lots of water potential, but access to water. See, the regional inequities aren't due to the fact that there isn't water available. It's just that there isn't investment. Now look at this. Again, top-performing schools are the country. Those ones with less water potential. Top-performing schools are the ones with potential. So in the Philippines, there's a potential for growing equity. Water potential does not follow the same pattern as water access. Also, shortages are expected to grow in the Philippines because of increase in population in urban centers. It controls the water resources, and so we really think that this represents a key challenge. So, though the Philippines are on track to reach the MDG for water, you can see there is clearly inequity with regards to household water access and water access in schools. Talk about for about 10 more minutes about inclusion for school wash in Uganda and Malawi. There's an interesting invention here. This is a wheelchair with actually a chair, plastic chair sitting inside of it. So, Malawi, Uganda. This is a little brief background about the policies of disability. So, the UN adopted the International Convention on the Rights of Disabled People in 2006. UNEP was a co-signatory. Defined disability is complex and culturally specific, and the availability of internationally comparable data on school wash access and disability is not available. There are very few studies that have looked at issues around wash and disability. So important. Overall, the UN estimates that 15% of the world's populations are persons with disabilities, and 80% of those live in low-income countries. 9% of all disabled people do not attend school. And some great literature shows that wash could be a critical reason for minimal access at school. Children not only disabled children not only don't attend school, but those who do attend school are more likely to drop out. So the clear reason for inclusion and improving access of school for children with disabilities. The economic argument, where there's a clear link between disability and poverty, and education has been identified as one of the main ways that people can overcome poverty. The World Bank, 1 in every 6 people living in extreme poverty has one or another form of disability. Transgender girls with disability are far more likely than boys to leave school. And caring for disabled family members represents additional workload for women. In terms of dignity and rights, access is a right, also guaranteed under the UN Convention on the Rights of the Persons with Disabilities, and Article 9 ensures persons with disabilities equal access to the physical environment and elimination of all obstacles. So, what are the barriers to wash access with regard to persons with disabilities? Well, there's environmental barriers. So there's steep, rocky pathways and long distances to latrines. There's the physical infrastructure, dirty facilities, steps, narrow doorways, lack of supportive structures, inappropriate design. There's social barriers, which include stigma and prejudice. So schools not accept students with disabilities, or will not share water or sanitation facilities because they believe they will contaminate them. And then cultural beliefs. Families, in some cultures, believe that families are cursed with children with disabilities. So on the ground, for country policies in Uganda, there are basic minimum required standards for schools They require students to include designs that address the requirements of children with special needs, and sanitation facilities must be separate for female and male needs and staff. They have the Disabilities Act that was signed in 2006 that makes provision for elimination of discrimination against people with disabilities, and National Policy on Disabilities. And then in Malawi, there's a national sanitation policy which designates that at least one latrine for boys and girls at each school should have provision for pupils with disabilities, and there's history for persons with disabilities and the elderly. So you can Malawi have very strong policy environments for disabilities. They're actually leaders in their policy environment in terms of persons with disabilities and children with disabilities. But the question is, what is actually implemented at the school? Do these policies actually reach the ground? And set out to find out. In Uganda, the Ministry of Education estimated that 20% of primary schools have some kind of children with disability-friendly latrine with ramps and rails. In Uganda, the DHS indicated that one of the top 5 reasons for dropping out of school, though, so 16% of males and 18% of females. About 204,000 special needs enrolled people enrolled in school in 2009, but it's only slightly up from what it was in 2001. In Malawi, near 500,000 persons with disabilities nationwide, and approximately 224,000 children with disabilities should be in school, but only 1,780 are enrolled. That's really astounding. So look at the percentages here. It's 124,000 should be enrolled, but only 2,780 are enrolled. It means there's a big gap. Even the industry themselves say that the current facilities currently the sanitation facilities for school children with disabilities is not known, but it's expected to be poor. They really don't know what is going on the ground. Here's some of the different water conditions. We conducted a number of interviews with children and guardians, and got some experiences from them, and in Malawi, and found my parents told me to stop drinking water during the school day, so they not need to use the latrine. She needs to use the latrine every hour. Her parents took her to the hospital, but they did not know what was wrong with her. When I need water or to use the latrine at school, I ask my brother or friend to help me. If no one's there, I will wait until someone is there. Might me out of the chair and place me in the latrine. With disabilities have special needs in school and rely on others, and they make adjustments for how they can go to school. And just the children that are able to attend school, most aren't able, most stay home. And so there's really an importance here of improving this for on the ground. So in conclusion, despite the policies, there is low implementation. There are clear guidelines for latrine designs and implementation strategies needed for improved access. Students themselves say that the most useful change would be a pedestal inside a latrine, so they have to use the floor, and the cleanliness of the facility needed to be improved. Lack of accurate data on access and usability of facilities. So actually understanding the situation on the ground and knowing how many schools actually have accommodations for children with disabilities might be a good advocacy tool to improve allocation for those resources. A holistic approach really needs to be taken to both the technical and social barriers for systematic provision of facilities. Oftentimes, I'll add that oftentimes the policies around children with disabilities are really focused on means, and mostly focused on children in wheelchairs. But remember that there are lots of different types of physical and mental disabilities that need to be accounted for. And so it's not enough to just have one standard facility that just deals with children in wheelchairs. So I think I'll conclude, and thank you very much for listening, and I hope that this session was useful. I'll hand it over, maybe see any hands raised, or anyone wants to ask a question. So if you have a question or comment, please raise your hand, and maybe Marat can open up your mic. Paul had an interesting question. He said, with enough challenges and too many things to target, what do you suggest to prioritize? I think that the things are really context specific, and I think the point is probably that you really need to focus, and you need to focus your advocacy strategy, and say that what you focus on is what you think you can achieve for the greatest good, and that will be really depend on your relationship with the government stakeholders, available resources, and what you think will really help change the lives of the most people. So all of these are important issues. All of these are worth tackling, but recognizing that you can maybe only do one or two of them. Just, I would say, figure out what would be the effective use of your time. And if then we will, I think we'll go on to, we can go into some of the presentations. So maybe I'll pass it back over to you, Murat.
Thank you very much, Matt. I go back to 2 years back when we designed the course. The Asian Schools and Equity module was not there. And it's great support that Matt mobilized the students from Emory, and there were 6 countries who said, yes, we would like to have the master students to come and work under Matt's leadership. And it's great to document and help to document the field realities. And publication will come soon on schools and equity. And the presentation you have outlined and our learning. Thanks for the great presentation. I see there were lots of positive comments at the web, at the chat box. The session is now open. If there are any colleagues who want to make a presentation on where they are with their case studies, and I would like to also take a moment to share with you some of the feedbacks that I provided, because I think there were 5 countries who shared their presentations through Peter van Manen with me. I have provided some comments with Peter. So there's some commonalities on the feedbacks that I have given, and I want to just work with you on those feedbacks. So I think the Kyrgyzstan team wants to speak first. If I can see a hand from Kyrgyzstan, then I can upload the presentation. It's a 1 page, I guess. If it is more, then you can email me, or I can make you presenter to upload.
Hello.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
I hear you, Magruba. I'm just, I think the slide is yours. It is over to you.
Thank you, Murat, for provided feedback and your comments. And According to our analysis, our team has identified two bottlenecks. Although I saw in your comments provided to the case study, they were three. Maybe we can discuss it after. And according to our analysis, we see two bottlenecks enabling environment and demand. I think it's common for most of the countries, and because the last survey we had in 10 schools, and in general, when we observe all schools, we are envisioning through a washing schools program, we see that enabling environment and demand is the main bottleneck, because wash is not priority, and social norms they are not supporting wash at all, and also we do have some standards, we do have regulations and laws. However, we don't have mechanism or tools to ensure the implementation of these laws or rules, standards concerning the wash in schools. For example, when we question principals of schools, teachers, students, the last priority more is given to wash, concerning the wash facilities, infrastructure, and all utilities like soap, water, etc. The main problem is given to the main school building, the academic structure or learning learning priorities is the most kind of important for the school, for the students, and for the parents also. For example, in the school, they do have some classes on sanitation and hygiene promotion. However, it's not that regular, and students and teachers, they have these classes whenever they have extra time, or to fill in the curriculum, and they never discuss things like the cleanliness of and maintenance of the school latrine and hand washing. They do understand the importance. However, they don't have a behavior, and teachers and parents, they don't control hand washing of behavior of the children, and etc. And another thing is standards we have, legislation policy we have right now is old dated, and we don't have updated the law or the standards to use for improving the wash facilities, and another thing is that is not a priority for the school, for the government, and for parents. Knows how much they need, for example, annually to maintain the school latrine or other wash facilities during the year, and that's why it's not included in the budget. It's included in the when we asked the principals and education departments, they reported that this cost is indicated in the budget as other expenses, which means it's not regular cost, or the school doesn't know how much they need for the maintenance. And on the demand side, the financial access to continue the for, all of the schools, rural schools, are on the balance of the local municipality, and they don't have extra funding for expenses. Even they have limited funds for costs of the school maintenance, like salary of the teachers and etc. And another thing, it's to discuss about the latrine is a kind of a very it's not open topic for discussion, even within the classes, between teachers and students. Usually they avoid discussing, and parents, they don't come, and they are not interested in this in wash facilities, the state of facilities that are used by their children at the school, and that's why there is no interest from the school side also to support wash facilities and making them according to the minimum standards. However, teachers, everybody understand the importance of hand washing, and if they were provided, for example, school children, if they were provided with water, soap at school, they would use soap and after the latrine and before the eating, and because they have good understanding of personal hygiene. However, because of the lack of water and soap at school, they don't have this behavior, and they're not demanding it because it's not seen the problem from by them, by students, by teachers, and by parents. That's why it's not. It's kind of normal thing, and the way of life, the school, and for example, even we have sanitation facilities in 98% of the schools. They are not functioning. They don't have water. They don't have soap, and etc. And in order to address these bottlenecks, our team we recommendations in our case study. It's draft, but we got comments from Murat, and we will be more concrete and specific in our recommendation to address these bottlenecks. Thank you.
Thank you much, Magruba and Kyrgyzstan team. You have done an excellent work. I think you are 90% completed with the case study, and it's great to hear from you. And it's excellent that you have two key bottlenecks and you're going to target them. And the way also you collected the data is unique. You selected 10 schools, and you visited quick them, and then you find a picture that shows what the reality is, and it clearly tells you there are the two areas that you need to focus and get partners to spend time and make them realize that these are key challenges to address first. See if there are any hands to present. I didn't receive other presentations or PowerPoints, So if there's anyone who wants to jump in and speak, I have commented several case studies, and I'm really happy to see that it is progressing. So if you have a hand raised, then let me know. I don't see any hands. In the meantime, I just want to Sri Lanka says they have a PowerPoint. If you can email me, then I will upload and you may speak. Email me and I will upload so that you can share Sri Lanka team. In the meantime, while I'm waiting the email, I just want to share my desktop. I think you have seen this publication, which was emailed to UNICEF colleagues, and we can get it at the website also. This is the publication that came out from the first 3 rollouts, and it has some bottleneck analysis case studies like Angola one, Bhutan. There are several, Sierra Leone one, West Africa one. I just want to show you maybe briefly one of them. You see, let's say Angola, and this is a link to the common feedback that I gave to several. Abstract is very short and sweet, and it says basically education or washing schools is important in the Angolan context, and the bottleneck analysis is used for this case study. It's very short. It says what the case study is about, and when you see the country context, it is not too long with copy and paste from different reports. It's more to the point and relevant to washing schools programming. So it's not related to big water issues and sanitation issues in the countries. It's more specifically to washing schools program. So it's let me get to the Angola one. So I suggest everyone to have a quick look at studies. They are not perfect, but they can give you an idea on not spending too much time. As you write the case studies, you can see that you can do it more shorter, but to the point in defining the methodology and then what the bottleneck analysis is. Like in the Kyrgyzstan case, they visited 10 schools, and how you select those schools, what you have done in the visits, and then you briefly describe rather than widening up too much information into the case study. As this figure 2.5, as you see on the right side of my screen, it's good to also show, like the Kyrgyzstan team did, on a graph all the parameters so that you can visualize which are the bottlenecks. And another thing is, I said maybe it is good to give 4 categories, like off-track, good progress with constraints, and on-track kind of thing. So rather than 3 categories, you may consider making 4 different categories so that you try to distribute the bottlenecks in and then have maybe 2 or 3 as a maximum to start and focus with. If you have the electronic copy of this one, you can connect with UNICEF Quick, and we will get it to the Blackboard site. I just received the email from Sri Lanka. Just give me a moment so that I can upload it. The team, it is over to you. When you say next, I will click the slides. Please open your mic and you may start speaking.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yes. This is Isha from Sri Lanka. And it's a very rough work of our case study. Next, please. The rationale for the case study is that though we have Sri Lanka, the whole is on track achieving more targets. There's a discrepancy in regional data. For example, in the northern and eastern south regions of the country, the data are not available or they are not reliable. And most of because of the conflict prevailed in the area for the last 3 days. Next, please. Because of that, our objective was to do an assessment on the field that prevails in northern part in schools in the northern part of the country during the and how we can see we can improve the washing school facilities in the context of emergency resettlement. Thank you. And next, please. This shows the table 1 shows the percentage-wise pension coverage versus the total requirement based on the norm, and the highlighted shows the northern part of the country. If you see, out of 877 schools, 38% would have have less than 50% of required status. In our study, we have done school level bottleneck analysis, not a national level bottleneck analysis. For that, we have used a sample of 21 schools in the Vavuniya district in the northern province. Next, please. And we have used the 4 categories of the bottleneck analysis and respective determinants, and if you see the indicators, we have 6 indicators which are off track than what we need in the standard. We have 10% of the out of the 21, 10% only in percentage of school children in the northern province practicing good hygiene practices is only 10%, and then the budget allocation is for washing schools in the provincial budget allocation is 15%, and then you have under the supply category, percentage of schools hand washing practices in toilets is 25%, and also the availability of human resources as in trained teachers on hygiene education is only 30%, and on demand we have less than 30% that has contribution to oil and washing schools for total budget allocation. And I want to say this contribution also is not in monetary terms. It is actually the skill development authorities. They provide labor for the maintenance and operational functioning of the wash facilities in these schools. And out of and the quality indicator, the only quality indicator we use, it is off track actually, which is only 30%. Next, please. Shows the whole picture of all the categories in the bottleneck analysis. Next, we have a next. I did not include recommendations and conclusions in the presentation because still we are working on our conclusions and recommendations. But one conclusion we have is that a proper baseline survey is very essential to develop a prioritization strategy to avoid demanding pressure from various stakeholders, and also a proper baseline survey results will facilitate the fundraising platform for emergencies as a database for policy and strategic formation. The creation of the baseline tool itself is designed based on the bottleneck forecasted and then the data gathered for analysis. Therefore, we believe the findings of the case studies, because we are depending on primary data collected from these 21 schools, would create a platform for the future improvement, and also to make
thank you so much. I just close your microphone because there is so much background noise and we cannot really hear you. It seems like there is a construction happening in the office, and yeah, it's very noisy. Thank you so much for Sri Lanka team, and apologies for cutting it a little bit. This is your last slide. Great to see, and I really like this graph of tabulation. It really shows the key two bottlenecks, and your accommodations hopefully will be in line with addressing those two key bottlenecks and linking to maybe the partners mapping that you do, saying that what each partner can do to overcome those bottlenecks. Thank you again for Sri Lanka team, and you are on the right track, and we will have soon the final case study. For the rest of colleagues, feel free to email to Peter van Manen. He shares with us your case studies, and we try to come back to you with feedback. I have seen 4 or 5 case studies which are on track, and also that many of you are getting hopefully more focused on getting your case studies on track. And again, have a look at the past case studies. It really gives an idea on doing it short, to the point, easy to read, and more focused kind of paper, and build on those past experiences, which are not perfect, but it helps us to learn. Before we close today's session, I just want to go back to this main slide that I put before we start. The World V1 2015 org. Maybe I should share my desktop just for 2 minutes. This is the website that UN is monitoring, and there are several thematic consultations, I think 13. Inequalities, governance, health, water or wash is one of them. So if you go to water, you see there are so many fields of discussions: water resource management, water for nature, wastewater and water quality, water and sanitation. And under each topic there are several discussions, and this week's discussion is on wash and governance. So there are so many things happening, but as you see, we have a washing schools location also at this post-MDG consultation website. And what people do is, at the UN, they will be looking and summarizing the thematic discussions, and the number of replies and comments made at the site is important. If you see, can you imagine a school without toilets, you see how many views are done, how many comments are put, and then there will be summary of these comments and discussions, which will be given back to 20 people who are the Secretary General's Advisory Board to advise on what would be the post-MDG goals. So if we want a washing schools indicator, we really need to make noise. This is not a perfect process in terms of how it is communicated and what it is happening. It is much bigger than our level. It is at a very high level, and they're doing it, and they try to do it for all sectors like this. So if you see, maybe I go to education, there are education-related questions and discussions, and you see they have 83 comments and things, whatever they are discussing. So it's really important to show that washing schools is important. And you see, education for that week received 1,600 views, and if you go back to washing schools, they're doing pretty well, but we can do better. And it's really important for you to share the links with your networks, get your partners, teachers unions, students to visit the site and comment, and then we can make more visibility for the schools. Okay, coming back to module 12, we are done with module 12. Next 2 weeks time is the last module, and then we will have time to complete our case studies, and then there will be a final exam. I think we can get more details at the Blackboard site. I would like to thank Matt for the great presentation on Russian schools and equity, which is an area that we need to learn more, and then also for Kyrgyzstan and Sri Lanka team for presenting, and for everyone for connecting at today's session. And see you in 2 weeks time, and before on email and at Blackboard site, you share your case studies for feedback. Thanks again, and good night from New York. Matt, if you would like to add anything, it's over to you.
I don't have anything to add. Thank you all very much, and we'll see you next time for the last session. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks, everyone. Good night from New York.